In 6 minutes, the richest city in Europe was gone. No warning, no escape. 60,000 may have died, and the survivors asked a question Europe had never dared say aloud. To understand what was lost, you need to see Lisbon as it was, the golden gateway of a global empire. For 2 centuries, Portuguese ships had hauled treasure home from Brazil, Africa, and India. Gold, diamonds, spices, silk, all of it through Lisbon. The city held some 200,000 people, its harbour crowded with ships, its palaces stuffed with 2 centuries of colonial treasure. The royal palace sat right on the waterfront, holding a library of 70,000 books and paintings by Titian and Rubens. And Lisbon was devout, perhaps the most Catholic city in Europe, packed with churches, convents and monasteries on nearly every street. November 1st was All Saints' Day, one of the holiest dates on the calendar, and nearly the entire city went to Mass. Every altar blazed with candles. Every church was full. It was a morning when all of Lisbon knelt together. At 9:40, worshippers heard a low rumble beneath the floor, like distant thunder, except it came from underground. 200 kilometers offshore, deep beneath the Atlantic, a fault was rupturing. An earthquake modern scientists estimate near magnitude 9. The shaking that reached the city lasted as long as 6 minutes. Almost no building in Lisbon was designed to survive one. The great stone churches went first. Vaulted ceilings, packed with the morning's worshippers beneath them, came down in seconds. Survivors describe streets rolling like ocean waves, fissures opening in the earth, and a fog of dust that turned morning into night. Thousands died in the first minutes, crushed inside the very buildings where they had gathered to pray. Then came the fires. Every one of those altars, candles, was now lying somewhere in the wreckage of the city. Within the hour, fires were spreading toward each other, feeding on collapsed roofs, furniture, and the November wind. The survivors did what anyone would do. They ran from the burning ruins toward the one open space left, the waterfront. Thousands crowded onto the riverside quays and boats, watching their city burn. It felt like the safest place in Lisbon. Then someone noticed the water was leaving. The river Tagus was draining away from the shore, exposing mud, wrecks and lost cargo. Some walked out onto the empty riverbed to look. Anyone who had seen an ocean do this before knew exactly what came next. Roughly 40 minutes after the first shock, the people on the waterfront saw the horizon rise. A wall of water surged up the Tagus and swept the waterfront away. Quays, boats, and the crowds standing on them. Accounts describe waves of 20 feet at Lisbon and far larger along the open coast to the south. The tsunami crossed the entire Atlantic. Hours later, unusual waves struck the Caribbean and Brazil, thousands of kilometers away. Back in the city, the fires merged into a firestorm that burned for days and consumed whatever the shaking had spared. The royal palace burned, taking its 70,000 books, centuries of royal archives, and its irreplaceable paintings with it. Nobody knows the true death toll. Estimates run from 10,000 to 60,000 people, most in Lisbon alone. The king, Joseph I, survived only because his family had attended an early mass and left the city that morning. The experience broke something in him. For the rest of his life, Joseph refused to live inside stone walls, ruling from tents. Portugal's capital was ash, its treasury drowned, its king traumatized. Someone had to take command of the ruins. That someone was Sebastião de Melo, the future Marquis of Pombal, and his answer became famous for its cold clarity. Asked what could possibly be done now, Pombal reportedly replied, "Bury the dead and feed the living." Then he did exactly that. Within days he had corpses buried at sea to stop disease, food moving into the city, and gallows raised for looters. Dozens of looters were publicly executed. Brutal, but the message held. Lisbon would be governed, not abandoned. Then Pombal did something no government had ever done after a disaster. He sent out a scientific questionnaire. Every parish in Portugal received the same questions. How long did the shaking last? Did the sea rise or fall first? One question even asked whether animals behaved strangely before the shock. Historians call this survey the birth of modern seismology. The answers, still archived today, let modern scientists reconstruct the event, placing its magnitude between 8.5 and 9. Pombal rebuilt the city centre on a clean grid of wide avenues and squares, designed to resist the next disaster. New buildings used the gaiola, a flexible wooden cage inside the masonry, among the world's first earthquake-resistant engineering requirements. Lisbon was reborn as Europe's first disaster-planned city. But the earthquake's biggest aftershock wasn't physical at all. Remember the timing. The most Catholic city in Europe, destroyed on All Saints' Day, at the exact hour of morning mass. Preachers across the continent called it divine punishment. But the blow had landed hardest on people kneeling in prayer at that very moment. If this was justice, what was the crime? Europe's thinkers could not look away from that question. Within weeks, Voltaire wrote a furious poem on the disaster, attacking philosophers who claimed everything happens for the best. 4 years later, he went further and wrote Candide, a savage comedy where the Lisbon earthquake shatters its hero's optimism forever. In Prussia, a young philosopher named Immanuel Kant collected every report from Lisbon he could find in the newspapers. Kant used them to propose a natural cause for earthquakes. His theory was wrong, but the approach changed everything. For the first time, a catastrophe was treated as a problem of nature to be studied, not a message to be decoded. Historians mark Lisbon as a turning point of the Enlightenment, the moment disaster moved from the pulpit to the laboratory. Which is why some call it the earthquake that changed the meaning of the word why. Nearly every system that activates after a modern disaster traces a line back to Pombal's ruined city. Coordinated emergency response, disease control, rebuilding codes, Lisbon ran the first version of that entire playbook. Seismic surveys, tsunami awareness, all of it began with a questionnaire mailed to grieving parishes. Today, the rebuilt downtown, the Baixa Pombalina, still stands on its grid. You can walk streets that were drawn as disaster planning, and the deeper legacy is the question itself. When catastrophe strikes now, we ask what failed, not who sinned. That shift from blame to understanding may be the most valuable thing ever built from 60,000 deaths. Lisbon never regained its place among Europe's richest capitals. The empire faded. The lesson is what survived. And Lisbon isn't unique. Another empire's greatest city was erased even faster by a wave of fire. That story is next.